Hello and welcome to the game design post for week 16, Wednesday. Um, so today I'm going to go to the class website here and scroll down to Wednesday. Okay, we've got a couple presentations due, Josh and David Ramos. Um, Josh already turned in his presentation, it's right here, so please take a look at that and then log into the website and post a comment on the website forum for Josh, give him some feedback about his presentation. Um, so today I'm going to talk about Twine a little bit and about the way that I created the two games that I posted on Monday's post. And I also want to mention that your deadline for finishing a Twine game is May 18th, the last day of school. So you've got some time, but what I recommend is that you make the first draft of your game. Obviously download the software, make the first draft of your game, export it as an HTML file, and then if you're going to have images and music in there, you have to keep that in the same folder, and then maybe upload that whole folder to your Google Drive and give somebody a link to the HTML page so they can test out your game and give you some feedback. Some of the other people in the class would be perfect, but you can use friends and family members. Also, another option, you could just put everything in your folder that you make and then zip that up and email it to somebody and have them open it up and look at it in a web browser. They could just right click on the HTML file and open it with a web browser. Now, Twine saves all of your files. I think it has something called a story folder or something like that. It saves everything in there. So you can pretty easily figure out where it is that all your assets are for the Twine game that you're going to make. But I do recommend that you make a first draft and let people try that and then make changes to it so that your final draft has some of those kinks knocked out. So, okay, but let's go ahead and talk about some of these resources here for the games that I made. So, if you go up to the top here, Monday's post, you can see that there are two games that I made. One's just like a poem, which is a weird game, and then this other one, the Rainbow Murder. So let's start with the poem. Let's talk about that. So I just want to give you some insight into how I created these in hopes that it can kind of inspire you with your games. So the first thing is the Twine poem used to create the game. And so let's see, that is not that, that's this. Okay. So this whole game, or, sort of wordplay poem that I turned into a game, came from just a pure act of observation. And if you haven't played the game yet, I'm going to give some spoilers away both for this and the Rainbow Murder game. So this Twine game here, let me go back up to the Twine game. Let me open that in a new link. Yeah, so this is the way it's set up, just as a reminder. It says the word Twine, and then it says, "So One Way to Spin a Line is a game that goes well with wine, is how developers shine." And then, by clicking on these different links, you go to these different rhymes and try to figure out, what is the pattern here? What is the way to solve this game, to resolve this game? Sorry about this weird image just keeps coming up. There's always weird stuff on my computer. You just need to know that. Okay, anyway, so let's go back to After Effects here. So anyway, like I said, spoiler alert, the whole idea for this game, this play on words, came from the fact that I was observing the word twine, and I noticed that if you took the first letter off, that it still spelled another word, wine. And then I noticed that if you took the word wine and took a letter off that, the E, then it would still spell a word, win. And then if you took the W off, it would spell the word in. And then if you took the N off, it would spell the word I. And so I thought, oh, that's really cool. That would make a cool little game to just keep slicing that word down smaller and smaller, until I was all that was left. And then if you followed the correct path to find that pattern, you would win, right? So what I had to do was I kind of had to work backwards. For the very first clue here, I knew that wine was the answer, right? So I had to put wine as one of my three choices. And then I had to find two other things that rhymed with twine. This was just a pattern I came up with. So I just, I came up with line and shine, and then I had to work backwards from there and construct a sentence that could connect to this word twine. So first there was wine, and then I wrote a sentence, twine dot 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 is a game that goes well with wine. Then I came up with a rhyming word line, and twine is one way to spin a line. Came up with the word shine. It's how developers shine, right? So when you get there, you have no idea. It's not really obvious which one of these you're going to click. And then, of course, each one of these had to lead down a different path. So, I didn't want to try to keep rhyming ein, because there's only so many words in the dictionary that rhyme with ine, right? So I thought what I could do is, I could take the key word from that people clicked on, and that could be the first word of a sentence, and then I could do any kind of rhyme that I could think up, here. Um, Now keep in mind that there's only one correct path in this, like in any game or in most games. Usually there's a correct path and some bogus paths. So since this is the only correct path, wine, that means everything else is just bogus. It's just me playing with rhymes and leading you into a cul-de-sac, right? So for shine, I wrote the word down here, and then I thought up a rhyme, friend, lend, and trend. I tried to think up 3 words that rhymed, worked backwards from those to write the sentence that connected to this. And then here I go, I've got 3 more rhymes, right? Um, so that was shine. Now I had to rhyme line, or I had to create a page for line. So I did that. I created line, and then I came up with three rhymes for that, and then work backwards to connect them to that, right? Um, and then after you go to line and you click, one of these items here, I tried to rhyme this with what the previous word was. This all small, false, all, they all rhyme with all. And so if you clicked on one of those, you have run into a wall. So I'm basically saying you've hit a dead end, and then you can still have it all. So just another joke, rhyme with that, return to the beginning. So basically, if you clicked on line, and then you clicked one of these, you hit the cul-de-sac or the wall, and you had to go back. Same with shine. If you clicked on shine, then you clicked on one of these. So we've got things that rhyme with end. Then you hit a dead end. This seems like a trend. Return to the beginning, right? So, that's not too very many levels. Um, to in a very complex game, you might take somebody on a wild goose chase for a long hunt, a long time. Here, I only really took them down sort of 2 levels on each of these incorrect paths, just because, well, frankly, time, right? And also, it's maddening to try and come up with tons of rhyme, and your brains just kind of melt after a while. Anyway, so those are the 2 sort of wild goose chases from the first page here, and then there is, of course, the correct answer, right, which is wine, and then that takes you down to here, and then of course, I came up with three words that rhymed for happening after wine, right? Now, of course, one of these words had to be the correct path because we're on the correct path. We chose wine. We know that the correct word after that is win because we cut off the E and we got that there. So then I came up with sin and begin. These little double brackets you see here are just me remembering how to code this in Twine so that becomes a link, right? So, okay, so we've got win, which is the correct way, right, to go. And then once again, we have 2 incorrect ways. And the same pattern here. If you click on begin, you get a few more rhymes that they all rhyme with stop. And then if you click on one of those, you have come to a stop. You could use a place to flop, return to the beginning, right? So that is the cul-de-sac that takes you back to the beginning. If you click on sin, it's the same thing. Go up here a little bit. Okay, with sin, I rhymed. Let's see, it's really hard because it's spread out over 2 pages here. Okay, I'll just do the top part. So I made 3 rhymes that all rhymed with over, and then it says, the game is over. You could use a makeover. Pretty bad rhyme there, but like I said, my brain was melting. Takes you back to the beginning. Now, if you click on win, that of course is the correct answer. and then we know that the next correct answer is in because we cut the W off of that. So that's the path that you want to go on, but of course there's two false paths here. So with bin, I rhymed it with basically sailed, and then if you clicked on any of those, you got that you failed, and you go back to the beginning. With thin, which is also the incorrect route, I found rhymes with smart, and then it's time we part, go back to the beginning, right? Uh, then, of course, if you clicked on in, which was the correct path, I'm rhyming that with, let's see, what am I doing here? This one's a little confusing to me. Um, it's not just you and I. Okay, right. So I is the correct answer, right? Because you take n off and you have an I. And then goodbye and pie are the wrong answers. And so goodbye, that all rhymes with do, and then time's up for you, go back to the beginning. Pie, that all rhymes with shout. And, oops, go up here. And then this is another one of the shout rhymes about, and then your time has run out, and so you go back to the beginning. Now, if you click on I, which is the final clue, it's the final path to take, you're basically, the next screen is going to be the U1 screen, because start with twine and then went to wine, then win, then in, then I. And so if you follow that path correctly all the way down there, then you get this this little rhyme here. Let's see. I is a laugh and a run is the way to have fun is how it gets done. You could use some more sun. Congrats, you won, right? So lots of rhyming there with one, and then you win the game. Okay, so hopefully that wasn't too long-winded of an explanation for you, but at least it kind of shows you the process, of the sort of branching narrative and the game where, there's always one correct path and two wrong paths, and those two wrong paths take you back to the beginning, and then you try again, and even when you get the correct path on one, like wine here, it's going to take you to a new page where you have three paths to choose from again. And you think about it, you've got three choices, so you only have a 33 and a third chance of getting the correct one. You basically have 2/3 chance of guessing the wrong one. So if you don't know the pattern and you're just guessing, you're screwed until you figure the pattern out. And so that's kind of the hope with the creation of the game, is that you start going through it and you see certain rhymes and you see certain trends that are just certain connections that are being made in your mind, and you follow those trends to dead ends. And it's after that process of, airing out a number of times that you're like, what's going on here? There must be something I'm not seeing, some pattern. And then hopefully, the light comes on, the aha moment, and you start to notice that, like, the word wine is part of the word twine. And then once you have that, you got it. You're going to sail right through all the way to the end. So, and hopefully that's, I think that's how some fun games work. Is they're challenging enough so that you get, you get frustrated and you have to think harder than you would like to, because we're all lazy and we don't want to think. We just want to eat and play video games, I guess. But once it pushes you to challenge yourself, and then you succeed, then you get that burst of joy, those pheromones or whatever, from beating the game. So this, once again, it looks like a fairly simple game when you just play it on, from the link on the website, but there's actually a lot of thought that went into it and a lot of work to get all those rhymes to even come close to working. So it was fun to do, fun experiment, and certainly you guys, if you're inspired by this, can create any kind of text-based game that you like. Okay, so then the other things I wanted to talk about the Rainbow Murder. And of course, just a reminder of what that looks like. So the Rainbow Murder is a little more sophisticated. It's got some graphics, and then it's got an intro, and then a graphic page here, and then clues, and then it leads you down to basically three gangs or chunks of people who could have committed the crime. And I think there's three people who from each group, or there's three people work together to commit the crime, and you have to figure out which one of these groups they're in and which 3 people in those groups they are. And of course, if you go to those groups, there's these little joke names where every name has to do with the color of the name. Prince, of course, because Prince, the musician, liked purple, and also because it's a royal color. Uh, Winter, because everything gets kind of in shades of gray in winter, and so on and so forth. Um, so that was just me having fun, and of course, inside, since this is an HTML document you're creating, you can use what's called hexadecimal codes to color text in here. So I did that to make these colors. And then, of course, there's checkboxes here. And there is some logic behind that. There's some coding behind everything that makes those checkboxes work. And it's using the Harlow scripting language that is part of Twine. So I've got a document here, which is my Rainbow Murder sort of construction document. And what it is, first I kind of wrote out what was going to happen. There would be a splash screen that would, have an image on it and tell you to play the game. And then you click the play the game button, and then there you take you to a play game screen. That gives you the written intro, and then it takes you to a crime page. And you notice, I put the double brackets in here just to remind me that that's an actual link inside of Twine. And then, of course, you go to the crime page, and I had written out all this description. I had even written, where the links were going to be, and put double brackets around that to remind me. So this document that I created, it was like a whole planning document. I made the whole thing. I thought the whole thing out. Wrote everything down, and then did my research into what coding I needed to learn, and wrote that down, before creating the game. So this is the page that sends you to the 3 different groups. And then here we are at the first group, which is a group called No More Complimentary Dinners. Now here I actually put in the code that I was going to use for this. So I did some research on Harlow, the Harlow coding language, and I found out how to make checkboxes. And right here is this span style, color, RGB, blah 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 blah. So this is like the color coding system that colors Peter Forrest so that his name is green, right? So that was me having fun. But then I put this code in here where, this is a checkbox, and if you click on that checkbox, you're either selecting the correct answer, which is true, or you're selecting the false answer, the wrong answer, which is false, right? So the first thing I had to do was put in all of these checkboxes, right? So there's a list of them there. You can see them all. And then I had to have some logic. You click the next page. And then on the next page, it's going to take all your checkbox, all the checkbox results, and it's going to push those forward to the next page, which is going to have some logic on it, right? And the logic is going to be what we call a conditional statement. A conditional statement is where there's 2 conditions. In this case, something is either true or it's false. So in this case, I say if all, I had to put some logic in here. I said, I was thinking, what if somebody just went in and checked all the checkboxes just to see if they would get the right answer? So I built this this failsafe here, which says, basically if you checked every single one of those checkboxes all the way 1 through 8, then it would just spit out a text that said you picked too many people, right? So now you can only pick 3, right? And then and once again, this is the spoiler right here. This particular page here, remember there's 3 groups to choose from, and then you have to pick 3 people from each group. Well, that means that 2 of the groups are completely wrong, right? There's nobody in that group that committed the murder. So, and this is a case of the fact that nobody in the No More Complimentary Dinners group committed the murder, which means, if you did anything other than check all 8 checkboxes, in other words, if you checked any 3 checkboxes whatsoever, it would basically take you to a page that says you are incorrect, because nobody in here did it, right? So it's always going to return incorrect answer. You were wrong, and then it's going to give you the option to return to the original page, complimentary dinners, to make another guess, or go back to the crime page so you can get to these other sections, right? So then if you go to the other sections, the American and the Triad games, same exact logic. We've got coloring over here happening to color the names. We've got check boxes. Each one has, a number next to it, so it can be identified. We've got our logic in here, which says, um, if you guessed everybody, then you picked too many people. And this is the conditional logic. Otherwise, if some other answer occurred, and it says if answer 1 is true and answer 2 is true and answer 3 is true and answer 4 is false, 5, 6, 7, and 8 is false, then you actually won. You're correct. The triad was responsible for the murder. In other words, if you clicked on, let's see, 2, 3, and 4 in the triad section, those were the correct 3 people in the correct group that committed the murder. So, it reads your answers, and if it's anything other than that, so in other words, if you did exactly this selection, then you are correct and you win the game, right? Else, which is the conditional statement, you either do this or you do that. If you did anything other than guess those 3, then you're incorrect, and you once again have the links to go back to the page you were just on and make another guess, or go back to the crime page so you can check out one of the other groups, right? And then of course we know that this one is the correct one, so that means that the third group, which is called Refuse to Donate to the Shade Tree Initiative. This group is just like the first one. There's 8 people there. The logic here says if you guess all 8, then you have to go back. You pick too many. And then, of course, if you guess any 3 whatsoever, they're always wrong, because it's the second group, not the first or the third group, where the murderers are. So, and then once again, the links to go back to the the original page and then the main page there. And then here it says, this is kind of, let's see, it says the user must choose 3 names from one of the above lists of people who they think are responsible for the murder. If they're wrong, they will be told so and will be returned to gameplay. This is me kind of writing out what I needed to happen, and then I went and converted it to code, right? It says the game logic will check their answers against the correct answers. If they're right, they will see an image which shows the 3 colors Lily was wearing at the time of the responsible gang. And that does actually happen. In fact, I can go in here and show you that. So where are we? Americans in the Triad gang. What did I say? It was 2, 3, and 4? I don't think that's right. I know it's not right. I think, let's see. I think it's supposed to be, yeah, because 2, 3, and 4 are not all right next to each other. They're just random numbers given to these things. So I think it's these 3. It's been a while since I wrote this game. Let's see, continue. Yeah. So I got the correct answer. It's only when you get the correct answer that you see the murder scene here. And basically what it was she's wearing red, blue, and yellow, which are primary colors, but they're also, they form a triad on the color wheel. And so that's the part of the clue, is that, it's called the Triad gang, and it's a triad on the color wheel. Now that takes me to one of the clues that I was supposed to cook into this game, but I never got around to it, which is, because most people who try this game, it's just too hard, it's too obscure, there's not enough information. Some people eventually figure it out, which is cool, but I think for the general public, it would be nice to have a clue. So I was going to add a give me a clue section, and it says the clue will say, upon closer inspection, you notice the word wheel scribbled on the back of the report. Now, when I've given classes that clue of wheel, they immediately figure out that it's a color wheel, since it's called the Rainbow Murders, and then they just have to go look at color wheels and try and figure out, how the color wheel plays into it. And like I said, the color wheel plays into it because if you look at a color wheel, in fact, let me go to one right here. So let's see, I think it's color.adobe.com. yeah, this is Adobe's color wheel, right? So if I go to this thing called Triad, uh, and now they have a bunch of extra things in here as well, but let's see. If you spin this just right, I'm not going to be able to do it, I know, but um, yeah, okay, this is a pretty bad example, but I don't even know why it's so dark. But you see this is essentially yellow, blue, and red. Those are all versions of those colors. Um, I guess I'd have to like, oh, I see, that's a dark version of it, and I want the light version. Okay, light blue, light yellow. Okay, I want the light red up here. Okay, there we go. See that right there? That's a triad of color on the color wheel. These three colors, in fact, those look very much uh, like the colors she's wearing, right? So that was my whole idea. It's pretty obscure, but that's half the fun of it, right? And that's all I have in my little report here, I think. So okay, so hopefully that was helpful to you guys. At least as far as the information about these two games and how they were created. I have one more resource here to look at, which is the Rainbow Murder. Let's see, Twine structure. This right here. And what this is, of course, this looks like the Twine interface because it's a screenshot of it. And now that you understand how the Rainbow Murder was kind of put together, you can see how it looks in Twine. So we have a splash screen, which is the intro screen. Then we have you click the button to play the game, and then we have the introductory text. Then we have this page, which I really refer to as the main page of the game, which is the crime page, because this talks about the crime, and then it's got the links to the three main sections, and there's always links to go back to that. So after you've exhausted one possibility, one group, you can always go back there and then go down again. In fact, you can see these little links that they go back and forth. So here's the crime page, and if you go, choose Americans in the Triad gang, and you pick the wrong ones, it's going to take you to this page that says, well, you guessed the wrong ones. Do you want to go back here, and that's what the double arrow is, or do you want to go back to the crime page and go on and guess in one of the other categories, right? Same here, you go to this page from crime, and then when you click next after you've chosen three, you can go back here, go back to crime, and this is identical. You choose these people, and then you can go back there or back to crime. So this is a very, very, very simple structure. You guys will see, if you do anything complicated at all, your Twine map here will just get insane. You'll have to drag things all over the place just to be able to see what's going on. But this is, if you take this map, this Twine map, along with, all the information that I wrote out about the Rainbow Murder game, and then the actual game itself, there's plenty of information in there to show you how to construct a basic game. And of course, you guys are welcome to do whatever you want. I'm looking forward to seeing how interesting and complex your games will be. Now, of course, excuse me, had a cough there, but of course, you guys know you can incorporate graphics into this. You can see graphics right there. You can also incorporate sound effects and music. You can put video, animated GIFs, really whatever you want in there. So, as you can see from that complex document I created before making the game, it's really a good idea to create, a little flow chart of the game, and which you can either do on paper and then build in Twine itself. And then it's super helpful to go ahead and write everything out, including, like I did here, some of the coding that you might have to come up with. Like, for example, if you're creating a dungeon game, then maybe what you need to do is you need to figure out how to create a list of items that can be picked up and inventoried from the different rooms. And then you might need certain items, like you might need a key from one room to get through a door in another, right? So, you would have to look into the code, those links that I gave you on the website. Let's see if I can go back to the website for many of these. I guess I have to just type it again. Okay, but I gave you these resources from the class website that you can use to learn more about Twine and about the coding and stuff like that. So here we are. So like all let's see, all these links right here. So how to create your first Twine story, information about the Harlow formatting language, beginner's tutorial, Twine help page. So, that's the first place to start, to look for what kind of code you'll need to do the kinds of things, the kind of programming you need to do for your game. And of course, you can aim for the sun, and if something becomes too complicated, you can scale it back, right? So I really want you guys to have fun with this. I know you're all interested in video games, and this is a very basic form of online game, basically a choose your own adventure game, but it's really fun. Twine is a great interface, and it's fairly straightforward and easy to learn, and you can do really complicated things with it. You can always go to the Twine page and check out some of their example games for inspiration, because there's a lot of cool stuff there. The Twine page is accessible from here. Okay, so that's going to be it for me. Once again, as far as the board games go, I'm giving the artists some extra time to finalize their work and get it uploaded so we can have the best possible looking board games. If you have any questions or problems at all, you can always email me, and I'll help you in any way that I can. Okay, so have fun with your Twine games, and have a great weekend, and I will talk to you again on Monday.